Right. So, this video is not, I repeat, not an attack on the Monomyth. But a whole bunch of influential people believed Joseph Campbell when he told them that every story ever told uses it as a model, so here we are. And to any dogmatic believers in the hero's journey who get uncomfortable when the word of Campbell is questioned, and genuinely do not believe that mankind is capable of making or interpreting a story more complicated than that of Luke Skywalker, I'd like to say a couple things up front. 1. Brilliant people have improved on the work of other brilliant people for a long time. Just as Plato improved on Socrates, Galileo improved on Copernicus, and damn near everyone improved on Bob Dylan. So the notion that Joseph Campbell could conceive of a useful thing and other folks could maybe make that thing better down the road should not be a particularly sacrilegious concept. 2. The book from which the heroine's journey comes is nothing but complimentary to Joseph Campbell, having been written by an honest-to-goodness classroom pupil of his. So if she could listen and respectfully disagree with Joseph Campbell, I think it's only fair that we listen to her with an equal amount of respect. And 3. Let's say, hypothetically, that adding a couple steps to the hero's journey could lead the hero thereof to more peace, fulfillment, and understanding by journey's end. Might such steps be at least worth consideration? Feel free to file that question away in temporary storage while I use the androgynous sounds of my voice to share with you a few words about The Heroine's Journey, first published in 1990. Toward the end of the 20th century, a career gal and force of nature named Maureen Murdock threw out her back. And of the events leading up to said thrown out back, Murdock reports she had been pursuing her postgraduate training, which required her to, quote, participate as myself in a dinner scene that included my mother, father, and younger sister. As we held the frozen positions once held by my family members, I could no longer sustain the position I had held of bending over backwards to keep the peace. I was immobilized for 3 days. I lay on the living room floor and cried about the pain and chaos in my family that I had learned to shut out through work and overachievement, and out of those tears came the image of the heroine's journey. Despite its visual similarity to Campbell's storytelling model, the heroine's journey is not merely the Monomyth with a no boys allowed sign tacked onto it. In fact, if you have found yourself impressed or surprised in a meaningful way by a book or movie since 1990, I'd be surprised if one or more of them did not feature aspects of the Murdock model. It kicks off with separation from the feminine and identification with the masculine. This is a rebellion against social expectations that can apply to anyone, but it is especially pertinent to mothers and daughters abiding in societies with a strong patriarchal streak. Because, in 1,000 little ways, the children of a patriarchal society get schooled to think mother is lesser than father. If she thrives in business, she gets accused of not loving her kids enough. If she specializes in being a great mom, she catches hell for not looking like a trophy wife. If she does all of the seriously hard things well, she won't get thanked for it because the moving of mountains is just what's expected of her. And when she does her best to prepare her daughter for the broken world she will inherit, that daughter tends to see mother as the enemy, more so than the unfair system that begat her. So in effort to do better than mom did, baby girl grows and matures, but does everything in her power to separate herself from the unjust shackles of womanhood, which predictably leads her to identify with dad, and to be at least as motivated and ruthless as the boys. Anyway, this young lady goes forth on her quest, finds some male allies, slays some dragons, matches wits with some ogres. In short, proves to herself and to the world that she is equal to any hero, and can absolutely have it all. So she gets it all. Now what? Now she lives happily ever after, right? Nah, man. Not even close. For the heroine.
It's only halftime.
For you see, after she achieves what she thought was the ultimate triumph, melancholia sets in where the happiness should be.
I'm an action figure!
And it is here that the heroine gets to deal with a phenomenon Miss Murdock calls aridity. She's gotten everything she wants, or rather, everything her society has told her she should want, and she finds, to her horror, that she still feels empty.
What's the point?
And, in my opinion, this is where the heroine's journey truly outshines that of her heroic counterpart. Because the hero's journey is incredibly unsympathetic to failure. The best you can hope for if you die amid the challenges and temptations, never having reached the prize at the end of your quest, is an epitaph that reads, "He died following his bliss." Worse still, if you did everything right, and the prize for which you have striven is a hollow one, the path of the hero allows for no plan B. Either you live as a successful hero, or you die as a tragic one. Whereas if you are the heroine, It is not merely permitted to change directions. It is expected that you will reach the long-awaited prize, find it is rubbish, and chart a new course. The first example of this I personally noticed in fiction was Terry Pratchett's Last Hero, in which the inciting incident is Cohen the Barbarian, as God Emperor, surveying his vast domain from a throne's eye view, going, "Is this all there is?" The second seriously good example of aridity I noticed was Mad Max Fury Road, as Furiosa knocks herself out to take a half-dozen refugees to the land of many mothers, only to find that it is a literal wasteland. In Kung Fu Panda, the different ways in which characters react to the winning of a worthless prize tells us a lot about those characters. Tai Lung and Shifu, for instance, respond quite badly, because they have a lot invested in this whole hero thing. Whereas Po, having never stood a chance at the conventional hero status that came so easily to his mentors, finds himself in an excellent position to pivot. But by far, the prize taker for hero versus heroine reactions to aridity has got to be Wicked. Because while the heroine reaches the bogus prize and immediately takes her shot at defying gravity, we see the quote hero unquote at the top of the following act insisting she couldn't be happier.
Because happy is what happens when all your dreams come true. Well, isn't it?
See, poor Glinda has backstabbed and bootlicked her way to the prestige of being the second biggest dick in Oz. She has the man of her dreams in tow, her life is perfect as it can be, and she is helpless, stuck in the quagmire of sunk cost, and in a poor position to change directions. So when she insists at the top of her voice she
Couldn't be happier.
Oh dear, yes, of course it's not true. But it's not self-deception either. It is the emotional breakdown of an overachiever going, "I couldn't be happier. This is all the happy I will ever get in this life. I really couldn't be happier than I am right now, and I am miserable. Oh God, oh God, oh God." Not so much with Elphaba, because she, being well acquainted with the unfairness of life, is finally at the point of accepting that the standards she was killing herself to meet are a sham, and it is high time she came up with new ones. Moving right along, the heroine makes ready to initiate a descent to the goddess, confronting the dark stuff from the depths of her own private little hell. The stuff she successfully avoided up to now because she knew quite well that facing it was gonna hurt. I've occasionally been told that people change when the pain of staying the same is too great, and I've generally observed that to be true. Leaving the safety of aridity is practically paralyzing because the ways in which it hurts us are familiar, and it feels just safe enough that we struggle to want to leave it. But there comes a time when the comfort of the familiar is insufficient, and you've gotten burned by the devil you know enough times that you are willing to take a chance on the devil you don't. To folks with full coverage health insurance, this could look like intensive trauma therapy. To a potter, it could look like a truly angry sculpting period. And to folks with wilderness access, it could look like screaming at the horizon until you are laryngitic and exhausted. Unfortunately, for a variety of reasons, be it the insidious stigmatization of mental health issues, the lack of sympathy among family members, the putting off of emotional breakdown till we think we have time for one, or the trauma that's been with us so long we are unaware of how much it still hurts us every day, both men and women find themselves discouraged from confronting the more, grisly aspects of their nature. But your past trauma is the most patient of stalkers, pensively lurking in the shadows of your soul awaiting nightfall. And when it overtakes you, your options are face and defeat it, thereby limiting its ability to hurt you henceforth, or limp away from it, again. And try not to look too surprised when your kid reports a shadowy figure with an eerily familiar description has started stalking them. Anyway, after an intense visit to the underworld and a good, hard look at our metaphorical demons, the heroine aches to bolster earthly relationships and reconnect with the feminine at a personal, mortal level. As she does this, she looks at the feminine figures that used to scare her. The witch, the stepmother, the matronly authoritarian from whom she had so desperately tried to distance herself, and sees them more completely. Most of them weren't actually trying to hurt the heroine so much as they were doing the best they could under their own less than ideal circumstances. Then again, sometimes the feminine figure really was evil, or absent or something, and the reconnection with the feminine may become less literal. The heroine in that case may seek healing in something divinely feminine that can be felt universally and is bigger than any one person or relationship. All of which is lovely for mother and daughter, but what about dad? The first half of the heroine's journey was more or less the hero's journey, right? So most heroines are still going to have a lot of hero in them, more than a little of which was probably inspired by Dad. Well, just as the heroine returns to find Mother is not as evil as she remembered, she will likely find that Father is not the demigod she remembered. I'm making an effort to use mainly she/her pronouns given the name of the book from which I cribbed most of my notes, but I believe in my heart and soul that healing is for everyone, and most, if not all, heroes would benefit from this step of the journey, because the trends of fatherly behavior may have changed a bit since the hero and heroine's journey were first penned, but by and large the goal of fathers is still act brave so my kid won't be scared. Not actually the worst idea, except some dads never let on that it was an act. So when their boys and girls grow up and wonder, what's wrong with me? Dad made this look so easy. Their options become A. Grieve that they will never be the man their father was and try to find their own way without a mentor. B. Double down on the pride, stubbornness, and things that were not working in the fake it till you make it approach to manhood. Or C. Intuit that Dad was amazing in his way, but he was just a guy doing his best. And maybe it's okay not to be perfect because despite all cunning illusions to the contrary, odds are strong that he was not perfect. I'm skipping a lot and not making this a particularly quote-heavy video because if I mentioned all the cool stuff in Murdock's book, this video would be 10 hours long. But one of the remarkable women she quotes is June Singer, who succinctly observes, "The goal of the masculine principle is perfection, and the goal of the feminine principle is completion. If you are perfect, you cannot be complete, because you must leave out all the imperfections of your nature. If you are complete, you cannot be perfect. For being complete means that you contain good and evil, right and wrong, hope and despair. So, perhaps it is best to be content with something less than perfection and something less than completion. Perhaps we need to be more accepting of life as it comes." So that's my best shot at condensing the heroine's journey, although if I'm honest, anything I say, do, or snappily edit together is going to be lame compared to what Murdock actually said. I cannot recommend her book highly enough. But before we leave off today, you know how the hero's journey is a circle? Because Joseph Campbell figured all heroes were more or less Christ and Osiris in endless death and rebirth cycles? Well, before having read her work, I would have assumed that the only reason that Murdock used a circle for her model is because Joseph Campbell used a circle for his. But in the last chapter of her book, she explains it's actually in specific defiance of rigid hierarchy. You see, while some ancient cultures saw their societal hierarchies as pyramids, in which there is a strong implication of greater and lesser stones, and no way to move the structure should you decide sometime after construction that it is a colossal waste of space, other cultures saw themselves as circular or chalice-like. Think King Arthur's vision of the Round Table, at which no one can sit at the head or the foot. And like the circle approach to society, no one part of the heroine's journey, or dare I say the hero's journey before it, should outshine the others. Each spoke of its metaphorical wheel carries equal weight, and the wheel is in motion. There's other cool stuff that Murdock says about the transformative power of circles, but for now, suffice it to say that while clinging to rigid structures that no longer benefit living, breathing people is human and something we do all the time, there is no rule that says we can't fight it, and we can all move forward a lot faster when the wheel turns as it should. As always, thank you for giving this video a shot. Like and subscribe if you want to. If you find yourself insufficiently outraged by this video, consider giving this one a shot. Until we meet again, take it easy. Loves you. Bye.